How do you turn a fairly simple idea of strapping cameras to your wrist with a strap into a $2+ billion social phenomenon? GoPro grew very well for 10 years in a row, broke even without investor money, and had one of the most successful IPOs of 2014. The company's founder was even compared to Jobs, but since the end of 2015, something went wrong. Massive layoffs, closure of interesting projects, loss of money, and a place in the list of worst CEOs instead of Entrepreneur of the Year. How did this happen and what happened? This is Nick Woodman. He's the founder of GoPro. Not to be confused with this Woodman. After graduating high school, he decided to try his hand at two startups. The first was an online merchandise store with a small markup of up to $2. He lost interest in it pretty quickly. And the second was a gaming platform that gave users a chance to win quite real money. Since he lived not far from Silicon Valley, he attracted investor money for development. He found almost $4 million in funding. But things still did not really go uphill, and in April 2001, the company ceased to exist, and she was honored to be in the so-called Silicon Valley Hall of Shame. "I failed and deserve to be on Fucked Company," says Woodman. It's a now-defunct website, and he used to cover the failures of the then first internet companies in a pretty scathing manner. Nick took it to heart, and after a bit of a break, went headlong into the realization of a new idea. GoPro as a company was founded in 2002. And the reason for that was the desire to take good photos while surfing. The problem was that the photographer couldn't get close enough, and to buy a full-fledged waterproof camera was quite expensive back then. According to him, ordinary cameras could not withstand such conditions and quickly ran out of steam. In the end, he found a solution. He attached a disposable Kodak camera to his wrist with a strap. That was the beginning of GoPro's journey. Then there were 2 years of attending technical exhibitions to find a billet for the future camera. He needed a ready-made device that he could license and modify as needed. He found a suitable option. He settled on a film camera for $3. Naturally, the manufacturer was found in China. As a result, we agreed to produce a trial batch for $5,000. I was so afraid that GoPro was going to go away like Funbug that I would work my ass off. He says, recalling the days when he was the company's only employee, serving as a truck driver, salesman, designer, customer support, and others. As he grew this time around, Nick tried to avoid investor money. From the start, he invested $30,000 of his own, $35,000 in a strap sewing machine his mom lent him, and $200,000 he borrowed from his father. Yeah, it's not the classic success story of coming from a poor family, and that's about it. There was money. His father was a co-founder of an investment bank. But the story goes on to say that Nick had to work hard too. He made his first sales on his own, driving around the coast and telling people about the product. He decided to focus separately on sports shows and surf stores. The idea resonated with the audience, and the young and dynamic one-man company ended 2004 with revenues of $150,000. The first cameras were sold plus or minus $30 a piece. In the same year, the first major sale also happened. A Japanese company ordered 100 cameras for a sports show. The following year, sales had already grown to 350,000. Nick hired his college buddy to take over the sales and negotiated with home improvement stores. The cameras had to show their face, and preferably to a large audience. The first industrial camera appeared in 2005. It could only take photos on 35mm film. A year later, there was already a digital camera that supported 10-second video recording. Then in 2008, they started to put fisheye lenses on cameras. That's where the rise in popularity came from. In 2011, they made a camera that could record full HD. I don't see much point in listing all the cameras. New models were released regularly, and they received some significant or not so significant changes. Matrices, processors were improved, new mounts, shooting modes, and so on appeared. GoPro slowly started to gain popularity and became a significant player on the market. So in May 2011, GoPro received the first $88 million from 5 venture capital firms, and in 2012, an electronics manufacturer from Taiwan acquired an 8% stake in the company for $200 million. GoPro went public in 2014 and planned to raise at least $100 million to pay off accumulated debt, but apparently they overextended themselves and raised just over $430 million, so the company was valued at $3 billion. One of the reasons GoPro was very keen on an IPO was to become a media company and generate additional revenue from content from their cameras. And this is where we need to go into more detail about their marketing. What's interesting here is that the company's advertising and promotion costs were minimal. From the beginning, GoPro relied on content created by users using their cameras, and it was looking not so much for buyers, but for people who were able to create this content. As a result, every video published on the internet is a free and rather large-scale advertising campaign. Well, not every video, but many really interesting videos were shot. The company, of course, encouraged this in every possible way, and this firstly had a positive impact on their brand and recognition, and secondly showed the product in action. But there was a nuance. From the beginning, GoPro had been actively partnering with well-known extreme sportsmen and sponsoring major sporting events. They were even often accused of literally sponsoring the risks of athletes to shoot increasingly exciting videos. So in 2016, GoPro had about 160 athletes on their staff. Therefore, initially the market perceived this camera as equipment strictly for professionals. Nick was not particularly satisfied with this because this segment is not infinite and everyone wants money. And gradually, over time, they did start to move beyond professional sports. Organic growth began, and YouTube became flooded with GoPro videos. Essentially, through very emotional videos, they show how the customer will feel when using the product. That is, on the side of features, on prices. The main focus is on thrill, fun, and enjoyment. Essentially, they inspire their audience to capture their own moments. GoPro reached its peak in 2014 due to the active development of user-generated content. In short, people saw more and more of these videos and wanted to buy a camera for themselves. Some people became famous in no time thanks to the camera, and of course someone wanted to do it again. In general, the more cameras left the shelves, the more videos appeared online. The product promoted itself. It's a perfect scheme. Content became GoPro's most valuable asset, and that's why Nick thought they should definitely become a media company. They didn't wait long, and in the same year, the first attempts to develop this direction were made. The goal was to monetize views by licensing user-generated content and producing their own original content. In essence, they wanted to create something like Hulu or Netflix. So again, the plan was to develop in two directions. The first is to license the content that their users create and allow them to make money from it. And secondly, as a test, they launched a show about Olympic athletes and a series about the lives of artists.
There was many times when uncertainty came and I didn't know what was going on.
At that point, it was really scary. It felt like there was no way.
The plan was to realize about 30 such short films by 17. So in the period from 14 to 15, GoPro hired more than 100 people to work in media and began to spend millions of dollars there. Of course, this affected the core business. Nick was concerned, were they investing too much? It became clear that more and more money was going out, and gosh, I wish we had put that money into the core business. In the end, it didn't do much good. Money was wasted, time wasted, the direction was canceled. The company just didn't pull it all out in terms of money. In comparison, Netflix and Amazon have achieved results, throwing billions into a similar direction. In addition, according to complaints on the forums, GoPro had quite a few problems with editing and distributing videos, and that's kind of a very important step, especially if you're basically all about content distribution. This had an impact especially on the most coveted and at the same time, the most massive segment of the audience, non-professionals. As a result, people simply switched to other companies' products. GoPro was aware of this. We had to assemble a new development team, Woodman says. It was a major reboot, and it was estimated that our software would be up and running in 2 years. Ended up buying a few startups to simplify editing and camera stabilization software, but never completely solved the issue. Then in 2015, GoPro introduced a new camera, such a small waterproof cube with no screen and just one button. It was originally intended to be a $199 entry-level budget camera. But the company liked the product so much that they decided to raise the price to $399. In the end, it turned out to be a mistake and the camera didn't live up to expectations. In September, they lowered the price by $100 and in early December by another $100. A little later, in another new camera, which in the base was sold without an aqua box and was itself waterproof, there were design problems. The body was sagging under water pressure, and around the same time, GoPro decided to test another new direction. They launched the Karma drone. They invested $96 million in the development of this thing. Almost immediately after the start of sales, a video appeared on YouTube. In it, the drone suddenly lost control, fell to the ground, and crashed. Based on the caption to the video, it was just flying, and suddenly fell. Apparently they developed it in a hurry and did not have time to test it properly. The company had to recall 2,500 drones and issue refunds to customers. The solution to the problem was found. The battery terminals were disconnected. They fixed it and returned it to the shelves. But in the end, the direction was completely shut down after 10 months, as they earned much less than they had planned. And the drone market was not a very big one at the time. In fact, they weren't used anywhere except for some rare tasks to create photos and videos, unlike what is happening in this market now. Anyway, a series of all these situations have affected the company's stock level. Teams were struggling to launch both products on time. We were doing too many things at once, and decision-making was taking too long because management was trying to handle too many projects at once. From late 2014 through 2017, the company operated at a loss. Its stock fell from $94 to $8. In 2015, revenue hit $1.6 billion, and profits fell from $130 million the year before to $36. By 2016, revenue fell to $1.2 billion, and a loss of $420 million happened. At that point, about 500 people were laid off, which is more than a quarter of the company's staff. The media direction was completely shut down. More than 40% of the top managers left. In the end, the number of people in the company amounted to just under 1,000. Before the IPO, GoPro's structure was quite simple: sales, marketing, development, and design. After the IPO, of course, the structure began to grow. New divisions appeared, which, in fact, worked as separate enterprises. The bureaucracy grew, and communication between people became more difficult. Eventually, after all the downsizing, GoPro reverted to its original form. We decided to keep things simple and go back to the business we knew and loved as a private company, Woodman says. Despite the challenges GoPro has faced from the 1415s to present day, Nick is quite wealthy. When GoPro's capitalization took off, he became America's highest paid CEO, according to Bloomberg, and made it to Forbes with a fortune of $130 billion. At the same time, Nick bought a yacht, airplane, houses, and a collection of sports cars. Well done. If he earned money, why not spend it? Although perhaps if he had not done so, the company would now feel more confident. So, in 2013, GoPro's founder won the National Entrepreneur of the Year award, and in 2016 he was named one of the worst CEOs. What does he say about his mistakes, and what does he recommend to others? Your hobbies are one of the most obvious reference points. Engage in the things that evoke your strongest emotions. Looking back, I don't see any real passion for the entertainment business. It was all just for inspiration. The simpler, the better. We structured ourselves as a larger business and learned from experience that such an organization starts slower. The simpler your structure, the less likely you are to play a game of spoiled phone. The string of mistakes in 1415 occurred because GoPro tried to expand too quickly. Just because you're good at something doesn't mean you'll be good at everything else. Alas, experience in one area is far from always useful in others. Nick was focused on the future of his projects, and this idea was actively sold to investors and employees. Knowing your plans, people will underestimate your current accomplishments, and you will have to implement those plans at an accelerated pace. Other than that, many GoPro users point out that there's no point in swapping an old camera for a new one, since there's no drastic difference between generations. Although, this doesn't affect Apple's stock. Plus, GoPro is essentially a one-product company, and over time, it has fallen victim to the modern economic phenomenon of commoditization. It's the process of turning a product from high-end to mainstream. A product or service loses its uniqueness and becomes simplified, and consumers switch to the producer who will offer a lower price. In short, competition shifts from unique characteristics to price. So it turns out that, yes, GoPro is cool, but I'd rather pay 4 times less for a regular action camera than $400 for GoPro. Especially today, when a cheaper alternative can be found in a few clicks. All in all, the market is saturated and margins and profits are falling. Those mistakes are what brought the company to where it is today. What is it now, by the way? Right now, it's a company with $1 billion in revenue for year 23 and a capitalization of $400 million. Right now, they still sell a few cameras, accessories, and subscriptions. The GoPro subscription continues to be a powerful financial engine for GoPro, representing the fastest growing, highest margin, and most profitable product we offer, said Brian McGee, GoPro's CFO and COO. This year, they closed the first quarter exceeding their plan by 7% and did $155 million in revenue. We believe our investments to grow our brand, retail presence, and broader product line will restore growth and profitability over the long term. patience is required, but our progress and product roadmap give us confidence. To me, GoPro is a good example of how a brand has built a large, loyal, and dedicated community around a seemingly ordinary product through content.